A ransom note strikes terror into the family of Robert Wiles.
We are watching everything, and if you think you can outsmart us, it will cost your son his life. Signed, Group X.
Robert's gone missing, and now there is a threat he's being held hostage.
It's all speculation as to what may have happened to Robert.
26-year-old Robert Wiles is the heir apparent at his father's business, National Flight Service, an Ohio-based company servicing privately owned aircraft.
Robert was a very level-headed young man who seemed to be very much in tune to the future.
But Robert prefers working at the company's Lakeland, Florida branch, where the sun always shines and the fishing is good.
The father, Tom Wiles, wanted him to know the business from the ground up. So he was there in the sales position and trying to understand and to prepare himself for it.
But prosecutor Cas Castillo, who's handled this case from the beginning, says there is some friction in Florida.
He did not have a lot of business experience. So you had these different camps within the employees, and that created some level of friction between them and Robert.
And Robert's father, back in Ohio, CEO Tom Wiles, has other problems to deal with in Lakeland, namely his top mechanic, Steve Lindsay.
I think that Tom Wiles said that he was one of the best mechanics he's ever had work for him. Very gifted man.
But Castillo says Tom Wiles fired Steve Lindsay for being intoxicated at work. Now he wants his job back.
Steve Lindsay became very aggravated and agitated with Mr. Wiles, and at some point even threatened him and made some rather overt threats toward Tom Wiles.
About a month later, the bombshell email that will change the lives of the Wiles family forever. It's a ransom note from someone calling themselves Group X.
We have Robert. If you hope to see him alive again, you must follow our instructions without deviation. Obtain an item of luggage of the appropriate size and place in it $750,000 in small, unmarked, untraceable bills. You should instruct someone that you trust to place the box unopened in your son's office. Remember, we are watching everything, and if you think you can outsmart us, it will cost your son his life. Signed, Group X.
Robert had been scheduled to fly to Dallas for a trade show only days earlier. Now his family discovers that he never got on the plane and has in fact disappeared.
Tom Wiles immediately calls the FBI in Toledo.
And Tom Wiles says he will pay the ransom. FBI agents plan to leave the package in Robert's office per the demand.
They also were very suspicious that it was bogus because of the instructions that they were given and the location of where the money was going to be placed. It wasn't the type of environment that gave very many options of escape.
But instead of $750,000 cash, they fill a box with coffee equal to the weight of the bills and place it on the desk in view of hidden cameras in the room. And at a nearby location, they have a SWAT team ready to move at a moment's notice. Tom Wiles also enlists his most trusted employee, Lakeland Operations Manager Toby Holt, to help out with the plan.
Toby was absolutely aware of everything that was going on. As a matter of fact, was helping the FBI by changing the tapes in there when he would come in the morning.
But the box in Robert's office is never picked up. Still, the FBI keeps up the search for Robert, and they talk to his co-workers, including former employee Steve Lindsay, but with no luck, and no suspect. The FBI determines that ransom note was sent from Robert's cell phone, which makes sense because anybody who has him would not use his own device to avoid being traced. But there's one thing the kidnappers didn't count on. The movement of Robert's phone can be traced through cell phone towers whenever it is switched on.
As we tracked Robert's phone, we saw the path that it took. Robert's phone got on the Polk Parkway, which is a toll road which has a booth. We knew the time that the call was made, and we know the time that it went through the booth.
And then, pay dirt. The agents identify a car carrying Robert's phone going through that booth 2 days after he goes missing. It belongs to someone who works at National Flight Service in Lakeland, but it is not the disgruntled mechanic, Stephen Lindsay. The Wiles family is shocked. It's someone they never would have suspected. One of their most trusted employees, Toby Holt, the very man who helped on the FBI sting to catch Robert's supposed abductor. Not only that,
you see Toby Holt holding a phone to his ear as he's driving through the toll booth.
Stunned agents now check the records for Toby's personal phone.
When they start looking at Toby Holt's phone, they realize that the phones are traveling together everywhere. Many of the calls that were being generated were Toby Holt accessing Robert Wiles's voicemail.
Now agents dig into the past work relationship between Robert and Toby, and after talking to other employees, what they find is pure poison.
Robert was very exasperated with his dealings with Toby and was just saying, I can't take this much longer. He won't give me a chance. He won't listen to any of my ideas.
Investigators also learned that Toby was the last one in the building alone with Robert on the night he disappeared.
We knew Robert was still there because of the emails that were being made. So we knew Robert was still at the facility, and Toby was there with him alone.
And Toby's phone also shows that he made a call that night to a nearby Home Depot only minutes before it closed. Shortly after that, someone paid cash at the store for 100 yards of plastic sheeting and 2 rolls of duct tape. Investigators could not recover surveillance footage at the store because it had already been taped over. But they do track Toby's phone leaving the Home Depot right after it closes. The FBI says there is a window of about 3 hours where they cannot account for Toby's whereabouts that night. He later says he went to a bar and restaurant and paid cash, but there are no receipts or witnesses at those places, and Castillo says that Holt, a married man, rarely pays with cash.
During one of the nights he was going to go see a girlfriend, he charged $7 in condoms at a drugstore. He charged everything. So for him not to be charging his dinner, and that was out of character.
FBI agents arrest Toby.
Mr. Holt, any comment? No. Did you kill? About Robert Wiles.
Charging him with kidnapping, extortion, and murder. It's one heck of a tough job for prosecutor Cass Castillo.
There's really no evidence in this case about what happened to Robert Wiles. It was indeed almost the perfect crime.
The baffling case of the missing Robert Wiles has come to this. His once trusted coworker, Toby Holt, on trial for his murder, with no body, not a single witness, and a chilling ransom note.
If you think you can outsmart us, it will cost your son his life. We had no forensic evidence. It was absolute mystery as to what happened to Robert Wiles. He vanished without a trace.
And now prosecutor Cass Castillo seeks to convict Toby Holt for kidnapping and killing his coworker.
The level of crime from which I could prove whether it was first-degree murder or second-degree murder or manslaughter became impossible because the evidence was unavailable.
But believe it or not, Castillo says the best witness is Robert Wiles himself.
Robert Wiles would not voluntarily walk away from the family fortune in a business that he was so interested in developing that something happened to him.
The defense cites lack of evidence, but Castillo says the most damning evidence is Robert's cell phone, because everywhere it goes, there is Toby Holt.
Virtually synchronized with the cell tower usage.
It is in many ways more conclusive and more persuasive than if I had 3 or 4 or 5 people say they saw him do it, because that's not capable of being manipulated.
In the end, the jury agrees. Holt is found guilty of manslaughter, not guilty on kidnapping, and sentenced to 30 years in prison.
As far as the murder count is concerned, then there simply wasn't enough evidence, because we don't know what happened.
But we wanted to get some answers from the man himself, so we went to see Toby in prison, and we put it to him straight.
Did you kidnap Robert Wiles?
Absolutely not.
Did you murder Robert Wiles?
Absolutely not.
But did he have a beef with Robert Wiles or what?
There was some tension, but it was more to do with communication issues between Robert, and not just myself, but with the other staff members as well.
He admits he was at the Home Depot on the night of Robert's disappearance, but denies buying that plastic wrap and duct tape.
Well, I called them up and asked them if they sold mini blinds, because we just 3 weeks earlier got a Home Depot credit card. So I was just going to send a facility guy down to get those.
And what about Robert's cell phone? How does Toby explain it showing up everywhere he goes in the days after Robert goes missing?
I'm an avid follower of CSI, and I know you can track cell phones, so it's not something that I'm going to be carrying around with me.
Incredibly, Holt says someone with Robert's phone may have been following him.
Are you saying that someone went through the trouble of orchestrating this elaborate plot to set you up?
They may have just been following me for another reason.
Who?
I suspect Steve Lindsay, but I don't know.
Steve Lindsay, the fired mechanic who threatened Robert's father. Holt's attorney also pointed the finger at Lindsay in court.
He was desperate financially. He needed money desperately.
But you think Steve Lindsay had the phone and was following you?
Yeah, I think it's possible, yes. Because they never knew where Steve Lindsay was for the 3 days.
Now, we would love to hear Steve Lindsay's side of the story, but that's never gonna happen. That's because Steve Lindsay died of natural causes before Toby Holt even went to trial. And that leaves the whereabouts of Robert Wiles unknown. If Toby is the killer, he surely knows where the body can be found. And according to Castillo, he could possibly lessen his sentence if he cooperates.
What would you say to Robert Wiles' family who are pleading with you? Toby, just tell us where our son's body is.
I don't have that information. And it's sad, really, because they have been convinced that I did it, and unfortunately somebody else did it, and they've gotten away with it.